Mindfulness is not just noticing. It's not just being attentive, but it's the ability to be attentive with a curiosity, with an openness, and with compassion and the ability to act. So I would imagine that as end-of-life caregivers, you're often in a situation where you don't have a lot of personal time, that it's much like taking care of a newborn. And these two sort of pivotal moments in life, death and birth, have these similarities, this sort of gestation period. This period in the beginning of life where there's growth, where there's this continued just growth, and everything is coming online. The consciousness is entering the body, and then the birthing process is that squeeze, that transition from what feels safe and nurturing into bright lights and color and shape and form and sound. And I would imagine, as I had a 50-hour labor with my one child, that process for the being that is being birthed is somewhat confusing. It's somewhat disorienting. It's scary. As in the transition that happens at the end of life. That there's also, if it's not a sudden death, that there's this gestation period when someone knows and becomes aware that they're dying. And if we actually allow that process, if we allow in life the awareness, the observation that death is coming, that death is in the process, there can then also be this gestation period where instead of the growth, there's the diminishing, there's the releasing, there's the letting go of a personal identity that has revolved mostly around a body, around a profession, around a relationship. And that consciousness that was in the womb, that started to identify as the body, can dissolve back into consciousness at that end of life space. And as a caregiver, there's such a beautiful opportunity to observe the true nature, the authentic individual, as their personal identity begins to shed and release. So this power of observation on sort of that grander scale, and being the witness, being the seer, the wise one that sees, we can have this sort of in the back of our mind as caregivers, that this is the natural process of life. And like a mighty tree that grows in the forest, when the tree falls and dies, it starts to decay. And if it's left in the forest, then it becomes so much nourishment for the forest itself. It becomes rich soil, mushrooms and mycelium, and the underground network of roots receive nourishment. Little animals find shelter. Bugs and all kinds of beings thrive and exist. And if we can support individuals at the end of their life and help them in whatever way, with listening to their stories, with holding space as they release their personal identity. We can enrich our culture which is so materialistically centered. We can help our culture start to reframe towards wisdom, towards carrying on these stories of wise ones, carrying on legacy, and adding that rich soil into our families, our communities,